Welcome to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast, where we feature top founders and entrepreneurs and their journey. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corkin here. I'm the host of this show, and every week I get to talk to smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of all kinds of companies, ranging from Netflix to Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation, Blizzard. Boy, this week was just sold for 70-something billion to Microsoft, LendingTree, OpenTable, Act Software, and many more. I'm also the co-founder of Rise25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And today's guest is Zac Cramer. He's an entrepreneur and he's a business expert. He's the CEO of IT Assurance, which is an IT company based out of Portland, Oregon, helps other companies to manage their IT infrastructure and provide help desk service to their workers. He is also an EOS Implementor, so we'll talk about that a bit, and the owner and lead writer of How To Business's business advice website. And fun fact, Zac started How To Business after realizing, in his words, that most of the business advice on the internet was written by unpaid interns who'd never fired anyone in their lives or done much of anything outside of a college textbook. His words, not mine. And he's also a member of the EO Portland chapter. So we'll talk about some of his experiences that are going to inform that website that he started. And of course, this episode is brought to you by Rise25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. Go to rise25media.com or email us at support@rise25media if you want to learn more about that. All right, Zac, such a pleasure to have you here today. And I want to start with a story about a time in your journey building up your company. And one day you get to payroll and you're like, oh crap, and this is the nightmare scenario for every business owner, $400 short. Or maybe the nightmare scenario is $20,000 short. But you're short no matter what. But you came up with the creative solution. So tell us the story.
Oh man, yeah. This was. I was a few years into it, and we ran payroll, and we came to the total at the bottom, and I knew they were close. I knew they were going to be tight, and I looked at the payroll number, and then I loaded my bank account and saw that we were literally $400 short on payroll, and it had to process that night, and so I panicked basically. And I pulled up my QuickBooks and I pulled up, the invoices and looked for who owed me money and found one of my old clients who owed me $400. Still a client, by the way, 15 years later, he's still a client. And I called him up and I said, Bob, Bob's his real name. I should give him a pseudonym, but I said, Bob, I really need for that invoice paid. Can I come over and get a check? And Bob, bless his heart, he said, absolutely, come on over and get it. Drove over to Bob's office, gave me a check for $400, took it straight to the bank, deposited it. And it was actually the only time in my life I have seen a $0 bank balance. I mean, we had literally, when I woke up the next morning, literally $0 in the bank, but we made payroll. So I think it was worth it. But yeah, that was a hell of a thing.
Scary incident. And now we were talking beforehand and you said that, I realized I'm a guy who was born into privilege. You grew up going to good schools in a nice community in, an affluent part of Los Angeles. What was it like for you as you moved into entrepreneurship? Because you weren't born into a family of entrepreneurs. Experiencing something like that, was it a feeling of, God, I got to get my act in order? Or what was that like after that?
Well, I had to get kicked in the face a lot. Before the arrogance started to fade out. I started my business and thought I knew everything. I thought, oh, well, why should I work somewhere? Because if you work somewhere, you're just making them more money than they're paying you. That's a foolish idea. And I didn't realize that you can work for free. You can work for negative money, right? I've had months of company history where we lost money and I didn't take a paycheck. And I just didn't understand, honestly, a damn thing about running a business when I started one. I would yell at employees and I would yell at customers and, I just would freak out. And it was a long time. It was years of getting kicked in the face before I started to realize, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah. And, I thought it was amusing, you've run an IT company for many years now. Before that, you were in a computer repair business. And so, naturally you began your career as all, IT company CEOs do by getting an undergraduate degree in classical civilizations, right? Like that's where everyone starts, right? So how did that happen? How did you even get into this line of work in the first place?
So I've always been a nerd, always been, an IT engineering type of person. And when I graduated from college with that classics degree and the ability to read ancient Greek, I knew that I wanted to start a business, and I was just kind of trying to figure out when I could start it. And so this business started with me putting ads on Craigslist saying, "I'm Zac. I'll come to your house and I'll fix your computer. And if I can't, I'm not going to charge you." And that was, that was the origin. As far as the college degree goes, I regret nothing. I have very fond memories of going to college and getting that degree. I use random references to Sparta and Athens during company meetings, make myself sound smart. So I'm glad I got to spend those 4 years doing one thing that isn't what I've been doing for the rest of my life. But yeah, it's a little funny.
Hey, you're talking to an English major, so I felt the same way.
Yeah.
I read some really cool books. I'm not sure that they helped me in starting a business. I never participated in like entrepreneurial clubs in college or anything like that. But you said that when you graduated, you knew you wanted to start a company. So was it an evolution during college? You decided you wanted to start a company, or how did that come about?
No, I've actually I started running companies when I was in, I think, second or third grade. My very first company, I would go to 7-Eleven and buy Warheads candies. And then on the playground, I would sell them off for 10 cents a pop. So I was I think one of the only people in school history to get called into the principal's office for running an illegal business on the playground that I know of. So I think it's just always been in me. It's always been something that I've been interested in and excited about. And I scalped tickets when I was in college, which when the Red Sox made it to the World Series was a hell of a good bet. I've been hustling for a long time.
It's funny how many guests I've had on this podcast that sold some form of gum or candy on the playground when they were in elementary school and got in trouble for it and got called into like the principal's office for it.
That's a thing? I didn't know that was a thing.
I've had a number of people who've said that. Personally, I got called in the principal's office because I got caught pantsing someone on a dare that someone else told me to do. So it wasn't quite as cool. I didn't make money off of that, unfortunately.
Bummer.
So you got a couple other crazy stories from running your company. So this is a great one. You gave someone the title of Employee of the Year, and then you fired them a month later.
So, when I first started employing people, I was afraid of them, right? I was terrified of the people that I was employing. I had never managed anybody in my life. I didn't know how to do it, right? And so I just, was always worried that people were going to quit or whatever. And I had this one employee who was very, very, very dramatic. Just everything was a thing, right? Every time anything happened. And when I was thinking about Employee of the Year and who to give it to, I thought, gosh, if I don't give it to this person, they're going to freak out, right? And then, well, maybe they'll quit. And I can't afford to have them quit, because if they quit, then I'm a bad manager and I made a bad hire and I can't admit that I'm wrong about anything. So I'm going to give them Employee of the Year. And I did. And within a month, they did something so heinous that it was actually not ignorable. And they became the very first person that I fired. And what I remember about that firing, besides being terrified of doing it, is when it was over, I tried to shake their hand. I tried to like reach across the table and shake their hand, and they swatted my hand away and got up and walked away. And it was just drama to the end with that employee.
Oh, jeez, what a painful experience. Another experience, you actually loaned a customer $100,000 so that they could buy equipment from you. And it turns out they actually were in hospitality, and that was right before COVID hit. So tell us that story.
Yeah. Well, so, it was, we had a client, a fast growing chain of restaurants, very well funded, very successful, written about in the news and whatnot. And, they asked us if we could fund some equipment for an expansion that they were doing. And so, I looked at it and said, well, this is a no-brainer. I'm going to charge them a good interest rate. Of course, I'm going to get paid back. Nothing could possibly go wrong for this company. And it was about 18 months after we made that loan, COVID hit, and they still owed me, 80 grand or something like that. And it was just that moment of looking at the books and being like, oh my God, like what did I not even think of here even a little bit? And like, now I understand how banks, have to think about risk, because holy cow, I could be about to lose all this money. And they did pull through with the help of all the restaurant revitalization funds and whatnot, but not because I was smart, because I got lucky that money didn't default. It was a scary couple of months.
What else? Tell me about when COVID hit. Obviously, that was top of mind, but were there any other big realizations, big aha moments, anything that you did in order to, hold your clients close or give them extra support in order to retain your clients?
Yeah. For clients who were really hurting, we gave some discounts. We did some deferrals of bills and things like that. We basically reached out to every single client and said, hey, what do you need? How can we help you? Right. What is it that's going to be important to you from us in this relationship? And by being really transparent with people and really open with people, we only lost one client throughout all of COVID. We only had one client who decided they couldn't afford our services anymore. And everyone else, as their businesses came back up, returned to full pricing. So it was a strategy that worked.
Mm. Now, along the way, you discovered you belong to now EO Entrepreneurs Organization. You also discovered EOS, and now you're an EOS implementer. I've had a number of different EOS experts on the show, including Gino Wickman, the creator of the concept, Mark Winters, his co-author. So we talked about the concept before, but what drew you personally to EOS? How did you discover it? And it was from a leadership meeting gone wrong, right?
Yeah, I tried to hold a quarterly leadership meeting because I was like, this is a thing we're supposed to do. I don't know how to do it, but it's like a thing companies do. We're gonna like have one, and we're gonna set some goals or something. And I didn't really know what I was doing, and the meeting went really badly. It was we went way over time. We just fought about stuff. We didn't accomplish anything, and I was just frustrated after the meeting. And I'm like, why am I trying to figure this out? Right? Somebody must have already figured out how to run a great meeting, right? This isn't something that I should be inventing. And so I Googled, how do you run a great meeting? And it took me to the EOS website. And it was kind of one of those moments of like, oh yeah, I've heard about this thing. It's in the air, it's in the zeitgeist. People talk about EOS sometimes. I should look into this. And then I did what a lot of people do, which is I contacted someone who could implement it. And I said, how much does it cost? And then I said, oh my God. And I hung up the phone and I bought the book Traction and just started doing a self-implementation in my company. And it worked so well that I was just like, oh my God, I have to do this. Like, this is so good. And so I became an implementer myself and started helping out, friends and other companies in my area, and just kind of, I call myself the accidental implementer. I didn't really mean to, but it's like, it's too good of a system not to do it once you know it.
Yeah. And it's a big chunk of your time now. You spend a lot of time helping other companies with this.
Yeah. Well, and that's, one of the amazing things about EOS is that it works. So I went from working, 50, 60 hours a week in my IT company, just barely getting everything done, to working, I don't know, like probably 20, 25 hours a week in the IT company. And we're growing and we're making more money than ever. And, I don't have to be there very much because we have the systems and processes and people in place to run the company.
Oh, that's amazing. That's the dream everyone wants to achieve. And tell me about some of the different types of companies that you work with in implementing EOS.
What's amazed me about my EOS implementation work is how varied the clients who have come to me have been, because it's all referral. It's just my friends talking to my friends and me talking to my friends and people, coming out of the woodwork. So I don't have a vertical or a niche. So I've worked with a company in Nashville that does facial treatments, medical spa treatments. I've worked with restaurants here in Portland. I've worked with professional services companies. The nice thing about the EOS tools is they're really generic. They aren't industry specific. EOS doesn't at all try to tell you how to run, what to do with your business. In fact, one of the things we say early on in the implementation process is, if you don't know what your business is and you don't know what it does, then you're actually not ready for EOS. You have to know what your product is. You have to know what your business is. And then EOS is going to help you run your business better.
Yeah. And now one of the interesting things about EOS to me is that, or rather about being an implementer for EOS, is that it kind of goes against some of the trainings around a business, because you want a client that's going to stick around for a long period of time. But the idea behind an implementer is that you come in, you help a company for a short period of time, 2 to 3 years, and then you're done and they're on their own. You train them to be on their own. And maybe that's just the ethos. Maybe it's just because it's not your first business. It's something you're more passionate about. But how do you rectify those two things? On the one hand, you stand for building a business that is long-term clients, great client value, that kind of thing. And on the other hand, you know that if you've done your job well, then the client eventually is going to not need you.
Yeah. So EOS has an ethic of abundance, and the idea that there are far more companies that need EOS than there are EOS implementers. And so with that mindset, I don't worry about where the next client is coming from or if there even will be a next client. Both because I don't need any more clients, I actually have as many as I can handle right now. And also because what I have found is that the more people talk about and hear about EOS, the more they want to do it. So it's just an ever growing. I feel like I sound a little bit like somebody who's hawking vacuums on the corner right now. Like, if you buy a vacuum, all your friends buy a vacuum. But no, like, it's a really good system for running a business, and it hasn't been that widely implemented yet. We've only got, I don't know, I think it's like 8,000 or 9,000 companies that have been implemented EOS, and there's millions of companies in the country. So,
right.
The number who need it is vastly beyond the number who have it.
Right. Yeah. And then talk about how you got into EO, how that ended up being something, what the impact that's been for your business.
Oh man, I mean, what I always tell people is, without EO, I would be Zac Cramer, the bus driver with a lot of debt. EO saved me. I mean, there was my business was going absolutely not going to survive without EO. I found EO because I was walking to work one day and I walked past the window of an EO member company, and I looked in the window and they had a slide up on their projector for the entrepreneurs organization. And I walked in to the business because this is sort of my style, and I said, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I don't know what's going on here, but I saw a slide that said entrepreneurs organization. What is that? And a member of EO Portland, bless him, stepped out of the meeting and came and talked to me and told me about EO, and I joined the accelerator program. But yeah, that was how I got into it. Was just walking by somebody's window.
That's the first time I've heard that kind of story. That's really cool. I didn't even know that you'd graduated from accelerator, which I participated in as well for 3 years and graduated from. Tell us a little about, for those who aren't familiar with it, how that helped you to graduate and what that means. Graduating, of course, gets to 7 figures in revenue.
Yeah. I mean, EO Accelerator is the best. I can't recommend it highly enough. I recommend it to almost every business owner that I run into. The biggest thing that the EO Accelerator program brought me, besides the learning days and the actual knowledge they give you, because there's trainings and they give you lots of practical, useful knowledge about how to run your business. But it was the first time in my life that I was in a room with a lot of other business owners. And so all of a sudden I wasn't alone anymore. I wasn't on an island anymore. It wasn't me versus my employees anymore, and nobody to ask any questions of. I made some of my best friends in my life, in my adult life, in the EO Accelerator program, who are still very close friends today. I mean, it was trial by fire. In the program, you're all small, you're all hungry, you're all learning, you're all growing, and it creates bonds, that last a lifetime.
Yeah. Now let's talk about how to business. So, you've done an IT company, you've done a computer services company, you've done EOS implementation. Why a online publishing company sharing all that hard fought information that you should be charging someone for instead of giving away for free?
Honestly, it's because a couple of things happened. One is I realized that almost everybody who could afford to pay me for business advice, because EOS implementation is not cheap, was somebody like me. They were a white man, and they were usually fairly privileged. And I wanted to be able to share my wisdom more widely than just that sort of small cohort. And then the other thing is, I noticed that I just kept getting the same questions. People would ask me over and over again, how do I raise my prices? How do I fire somebody? What is the right way to hire somebody? And like I mentioned before, kind of having a belief in abundance, I don't think that if I give it all away, that there's going to be no more for me. Right? I'm not like, oh, if I just give it all away, then I'm going to go broke or anything like that. Like, that's not how the world works. That's not how things work. The more we give, the more we get. And so by putting it all out there for free, and I should say, I tried to find somebody else doing it first. I mean, I didn't lightly dive into, I'm just going to start this thing. But the business advice that's out there for free is just terrible. I mean, if you just Google things, they're just awful. It's links to Quora forums where clearly nobody's ever done any of these things in their lives. Or it's all these teaser articles where they're like, here's 2% of this and call us and pay us for more. And so I was really responding to the need, right? Which is, I realized it's just not out there. There isn't good business advice out there for people who aren't at the point where they can afford to hire a professional business person, right, to give them that kind of advice. So heck, I've got enough money. I'm going to make it. I'm going to hire the people. I'm going to hire the designer and the web developer and, the editor and all that other stuff. And we're just going to go and do it.
And is this something where you figure, we'll work on building it and then we'll figure out a business model later? Or do you see this plugging into your current businesses?
No, this is what I'm really excited about. So ever since I was, the second or third grade, everything for me has been about how am I going to make money on it, right? Whether it's my IT company or the real estate development that I do or the Airbnbs that I run or the EOS implementation that I do, everything has been, what's my profit angle? And what's so fun for me on this one is, because people ask me this question a lot, my web developers say, how are you going to monetize? Is I don't have to, right? I can just do what I want without thinking for even a second about whether or not I'm going to ever make any money on it. I'm not going to make money on it. I lose money on it. I spent $15,000 so far having the website developed and built and having the content that I wrote edited, to make it be good. And that's just lost. I mean, it's not lost, it's invested, right? Yeah. And I'm going to spend, another, who knows, a couple $1,000 a year, right? Hosting it and writing more articles and having them edited and having art created for them. And I just don't have to care. And it's so nice to not have to care for once how something is going to make me money.
Yeah. Well, I've observed you inside of Slack communities, and you're very proficient in your advice giving. And well, actually, that's a bad word in the EO world to say advice giving, but experience sharing really.
Yeah.
You don't hold back. Like you will share your experience liberally. So I can see how that would be a good medium for you, where you can share your writing more publicly with a global audience.
Yeah, and that Slack channel is a good example, right? To be in that Slack channel, you have to already have $1 million business.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like we can all commiserate with each other in that channel, and it's wonderful, and we all get help from that. And I don't want to dismiss that at all. But what happens to the first generation person who's no one in their family's ever run a business before, and they're just like, I want to start. Where do they go? Where do they get the advice they need? How do they get the basic information beyond whether or not they should be an LLC, right? To start a business.
Right. 10 tips for this is how you do XYZ or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's a lot of trite stuff like that. I want to wrap things up with the question I always ask, which is, I'm a big fan of gratitude, and you've been involved in a number of different communities, EOS, IT services. If you look around at your peers and your contemporaries, however you want to define that, who do you respect? Who do you admire? Who are people that you'd want to just kind of call out publicly and say, I really appreciate you for what you've done to help me along the way?
I'm going to give all my love to my EO forum members. So these are the people that I meet with on a monthly basis and have for many years. Other business owners in the EO Portland community, and who keep me sane, and who are some of the most important people in my life. And so I'm going to give a call out to Scott Simon, who owns Voicebox Karaoke, Bill Kerrigan, who owns Three Mountains Plumbing, Paul Backett, who owns Evolve Collaborative, Ariel Weedman, who owns Weedman Design Partners, and Randy Wakerlin, who owns Sock Lady Socks, because they are and have been some of the most important people in my life for a very long time, and I am deeply grateful to all of them.
It's amazing when you list them all, the diversity of the different types of businesses you just listed right there, all kinds of different types of businesses, but all gathering together to get better together.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah. Zac, this has been great. Where can people go to learn more about you and connect with you?
Well, they can go to howtobusiness.com, and they can read cool articles about how to run businesses, which is super exciting. Or they're welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. I always like it when non-robots connect with me. I mean, I get so many robots that it's nice to get a real person every once in a while. Or send me an email or give me a call. I'm pretty available. I don't have a secretary or anything. You can just get to me.
Tell him you heard him when you reach out on LinkedIn. Tell him you heard him on Smart Business Revolution. All right, Zac. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Rising Entrepreneurs Podcast. This episode is powered by Rise 25. Please subscribe and check out future episodes.